In many research papers and research theses by student researchers or junior researchers, there is a focus on the what and how of the research process and outcome. In other words, there is a lack of focus on the why of the research process and outcome. So, why is it important that junior researchers, student researchers should focus on the why question of the research process and outcome? This is a question that we will briefly respond to in this presentation. So, first, let us briefly describe the what focus or the descriptive focus of the research process that one generally comes across in student research theses and research papers. So the what generally in this type of focus, there is focus on the what, when, and how of the research process. So there is generally a description of the topic or the subject matter around which the research revolves. Then there is a description of the research questions and research objectives. So generally the research questions are and research objectives are presented without any critical analysis of the background of those research questions or objectives. Then the methodological choices or the methodology sections are also presented in a very descriptive way. And so there is generally a presentation of what data collection methods and processes were used, what analysis procedures were followed, and in what ways generally was the interpretation of the data done. The descriptive level is also reflected in such research reports in the findings, conclusions, and recommendation sections, where the focus is generally on presenting the findings in response to the research questions or research objectives. Then conclusions are made on the based on those findings, and then recommendations are given keeping in view the findings of the studies. But again, in all of these sections, there is generally a focus on the description of the various sections, the description, and there is a bit of analysis as well. The response is generally to the what, when, and how of the research process rather than the why of the research process or the rationalization of the research process and outcomes. So now, why is it important that junior researchers, student researchers need to focus on the why question of the research, of their research processes and outcomes? So generally the why focus is basically a focus that involves an analysis and a rationalization, first of all, of the research topic or subject matter. So it's not just that there is a presentation of the research topic, but also a rationalization of why the research topic has been selected. Why is it important that this research topic needs exploration or further exploration? So the why question, the rationalization, the justification of the research topic is important in the why focus, and so that is something that is desired and that is actually required on the part of the research students or junior researchers. Secondly, there should also be a rationalization and analysis, critical analysis and rationalization of the research questions. So why is it that these particular research questions were how were they developed and why were they developed, and also the why of the research objectives. So why the research has these objectives that have been selected for this particular study. Then there should also be an analysis and rationalization of the methodological choices. For example, it's not just about what sampling techniques were used, but also why those sampling techniques were used. Similarly, the rationalization of the data collection methods or processes. For example, if one has chosen interviews as data collection, so it's not just about that, it's about the justification of interviews or the justification of questionnaires or a combination, or the justification of the observational method. So whatever data collection methods have been used, there should be rationalization and justification of that. Then there should be rationalization and justification of the analysis and interpretations of the data that have been made. So the processes that were adopted in order to analyze data, to interpret data, that those processes also need justification. Then the processes of validation of the research process, the validation of the research tools, the validation of the data collection and analysis methods is also it is also very important to rationalize and justify the validation process, and also the justification of the particular ethical considerations that were used in the particular research process. Then also there should be an analysis and rationalization and justification of the findings and the conclusions that were made on the basis of those findings. Also, there should be implications, and so those implications should also be rationalized, keeping in view the context of the data, keeping in view the particular research design, and so the implications or the conclusions should also be rationalized. Lastly, if there is a recommendation section, that recommendation is generally based on the findings and conclusions of the research project, and so those recommendations should also be rationalized and justified. So the why focus in the research is very important, because this is a focus that is analytical in nature, that is critical, and that is evaluative, and that actually shows the in-depth understanding of the researchers regarding the research topic, regarding the research objectives, the particular methodological choices that they have made, and the justification of those methodological choices. The why question also, focus on the why question also helps the researchers in critically analyzing their findings and conclusions and implications of their studies. So the why question is something that gives critical voice to the researchers, to the junior researchers and student researchers, and that gives insights to the examiners regarding the depth of understanding of the researchers and the depth of their critical analysis, their authentic voice is new researchers. And so therefore it is very important for junior researchers and student researchers to take care of the why question in their research reports, to rationalize their choices, their topics, their choices, their conclusions and implications.